Welcome, everybody, to this very special occasion of the Hiroshima Peace Day. My name is Terumi Kawada. I am a member of the Manitoba Japanese Canadian Citizens Association, and I am past president of the National Association of Japanese Canadians. I'm so pleased that everybody could make it here, and I'm sure we're going to have all sorts of thoughts and comments and dreams about what is possible from this point on. I want to just tell you that for me, the Hiroshima Peace Day is a time of remembering the victims of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These people are called the Hibakusha, and these people who are still living today, many of them, and remembering that horrible day in 1945. And wishing that there was peace in the world and that there was no more nuclear weapons. And I think this is something that we all embrace, the abolition of nuclear weapons. The Hiroshima Peace Day is also a time of hope for me, a hope for the world that there will be no wars and there will be no nuclear weapons, no more suffering, no more pain to the world, and that we all strive for global peace. And I know that many of you congregated today are involved in many tremendous efforts in working towards global peace, and I thank you all for those efforts, and hopefully we can one day stand here and we'll have different kind of messages. One of the messages that I would like to read to you today is a message from Mayor Sam Cates. I wish I had my glasses here, but doesn't matter. I would like to extend my apologies for not being able to join all of you today. However, colleagues on City Council and the citizens of Winnipeg, I want to express greetings to everyone attending and participating in the Hiroshima-Nagasaki Lanterns for Peace event being hosted by Project Peacemakers, the Manitoba Japanese Canadian Citizens Association, and Peace Alliance of Winnipeg. As people around the world gather to commemorate the 67th anniversary of the nuclear bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we must all take the time to remember the lives lost as a result of this catastrophic impact of nuclear weapons. By acknowledging these events, which forever changed the world that we live in, we can begin to promote alternate methods in dealing with conflict. By endorsing peace and mutual understanding, simply put, we are investing in our future. Through your enduring commitment and concentrated efforts, those that perished in this tragedy will be thoughtfully remembered and honored. This event is sure to highlight the necessary pursuit of peace in order to ensure a legacy for future generations that embraces a quality of life that we all deserve. I want to commend Project Peacemakers, the Manitoba Japanese Canadian Citizens Association, and Peace Alliance Winnipeg for their efforts in ensuring this anniversary is commemorated year after year, as this is an anniversary that merits recognition and remembrance. On behalf of my colleagues on City Council, thank you for your commitment to our community. We applaud your spirit, dedication, and perseverance in remembering the tragedies of our past and pursuing peace for our future. Warm regards, Sam Cates, Mayor of Winnipeg. I'd like to introduce Nadia Kidwa. Nadia is very much involved in peace movements in Winnipeg and contributing much to many social justice issues and human rights issues. She's a wonderful inspiration for me, and I was so pleased that she agreed to come today to read the speech from the mayor of Hiroshima, which was spoken earlier in the day. Thank you. Nadia.
8:15 a.m., August 6th, 1945. Our hometown was reduced to ashes by a single atomic bomb. The houses we came home to, our everyday lives, the customs we cherished, all gone. Hiroshima was no more. The city had vanished. No roads, just a burnt plain of rubble as far as I could see. And sadly, I could see too far. I followed electric lines that had fallen along what I took to be tram rails. The tram street was hot. Death was all around. That was our city, as seen by a young woman of 20. That was Hiroshima for all the survivors. The exciting festivals, the playing in boats, the fishing and clamming, the children catching long-armed shrimp. A way of life had disappeared from our beloved rivers. Worse yet, the bomb snuffed out the sacred lives of so many human beings. I rode in a truck with a civic defense team to pick up corpses. I was just a boy, so they told me to grab the ankles. I did, but the skin slipped right off. I couldn't hold on. I steeled myself, squeezed hard with my fingertips, and the flesh started oozing. A terrible stench. I gripped right down to the bone. With a 1, 2, 3, we tossed them into the truck. As seen in the experience of this 13-year-old boy, our city had become a living hell. Countless corpses lay everywhere, piled on top of each other. Amid the moans of unearthly voices, infants sucked at the breasts of dead mothers, while dazed, empty-eyed mothers clutched their dead babies. A girl of 16 lost her whole family, one after the other. My 7-year-old brother was burned from head to toe. He died soon after the bombing. A month later, my parents died. Then, my 13-year-old brother and my 11-year-old sister. The only ones left were myself and my little brother, who was 3, and he died later of cancer. From newborns to grandmothers, by the end of the year, 140,000 precious lives were taken from Hiroshima. Hiroshima was plunged into deepest darkness. Our hibakusha experienced the bombing in flesh and blood. Then they had to live with after effects and social prejudice. Even so, they soon began telling the world about their experience. Transcending rage and hatred, they reveal the utter inhumanity of nuclear weapons and work tirelessly to abolish those weapons. We want the whole world to know of their hardship, their grief, their pain, and their selfless desire. The average hibakusha is now over 78. This summer, in response to the many ordinary citizens seeking to inherit and pass on their experience and desire, Hiroshima has begun carefully training official hibakusha successors. Determined never to let the atomic bombing fade from memory, we intend to share with ever more people at home and abroad, the Hibakusha desire for a nuclear weapon-free world. People of the world, especially leaders of nuclear-armed nations, please come to Hiroshima to contemplate peace in this A-bombed city. This year, Mayors for Peace marked its 30th anniversary. The number of cities calling for the total abolition of nuclear weapons by 2020 has passed 5,300, and our members now represent approximately 1 billion people. That event will convey to the world the intense desire of the overwhelming majority of our citizens for a nuclear weapons convention and elimination of nuclear weapons. The following spring, Hiroshima will host a ministerial meeting of the Non-Proliferation and Disarmament Initiative, comprising 10 non-nuclear weapon states, including Japan. I firmly believe that the demand for freedom from nuclear weapons will soon spread out from Hiroshima, encircle the globe, and lead us to genuine world peace. March 11th, 2011 is a day we will never forget. A natural disaster compounded by a nuclear power accident created an unprecedented catastrophe. Here in Hiroshima, we are keenly aware that the survivors of that catastrophe still suffer terribly, yet look toward the future with hope. We see their ordeal clearly superimposed on what we endured 67 years ago. I speak now to all in the stricken areas. Please hold fast to your hope for tomorrow. Your day will arrive, absolutely. Our hearts are with you. Having learned a lesson from that horrific accident, Japan is now engaged in a national debate over its energy policy, with some voices insisting nuclear energy and humankind cannot coexist. I call on the Japanese government to establish without delay an energy policy that guards the safety and security of the people. I ask the government of the only country to experience an atomic bombing to accept as its own the resolve of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Mindful of the unstable situation surrounding us in Northeast Asia, please display bolder leadership in the movement to eliminate nuclear weapons. Please also provide more caring measures for the Hibakusha in and out of Japan, who still suffer even today, and take the political decision to expand the Black Rain areas. Once again, we offer our heartfelt prayers for the peaceful repose of the atomic bomb victims. From our base here in Hiroshima, we pledge to convey to the world the experience and the desire of our Hibakusha and do everything in our power to achieve the genuine peace of a world without nuclear weapons. Mayor Kazumi Matsui, the city of Hiroshima.
Next, I'd like to call upon Glenn Mikulczyk. Glenn is a member of the Peace Alliance Winnipeg, and Glenn is going to speak on It Is Not Enough to Remember. Glenn?
67 years ago, the world witnessed a new and even more deadly consequence to war as atom bombs fell on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Thousands of citizens still suffer the devastating after effects of radiation and unfathomable emotional pain. Today in Winnipeg and thousands of cities around the world, people are gathering to mark the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki with the traditional lantern ceremony. However, it is not enough to remember. That is why the lantern ceremony has also been an occasion to reflect on the consequences of war, the danger posed by nuclear weapons, and the need to prevent war. In 1986, the arms race reached its peak. At that time, the two superpowers had some 70,000 nuclear weapons in their arsenals. While the end of the Cold War diminished the possibility of nuclear war, the number and proliferation of nuclear weapons continues to be a major threat to the world's peace and security. There still remain over 23,000 nuclear weapons distributed through the arsenals of the world's nuclear powers. The fact that these nuclear powers do not relinquish their arsenals spurs other countries to develop the capacity to acquire nuclear weapons as a measure of defense and deterrence. The use of uranium as a weapon is not limited to the destructive force of nuclear warheads. Depleted uranium was used, which is highly toxic, has been used in 3 of the major conflicts of this period. It was used in Yugoslavia, Iraq, and Afghanistan by US and NATO forces. A Canadian research center has found evidence of the use of depleted uranium in Afghanistan and the possibility the war was the testing ground for new uranium weapons. The fact that the Canadian Armed Forces were active in all those campaigns makes Canada complicit in using those devastating weapons. Canadian complicity also reaches back to the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as it was Canadian uranium ore which provided the necessary material to develop the bombs. To prevent any repetition of the A-bomb tragedy, the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki have continually sought to tell the world about the inhumane cruelty of nuclear war. In 1982, at the second UN Special Session on Disarmament, the mayor of Hiroshima announced the program to promote the solidarity of cities toward the total abolition of nuclear weapons. It called upon cities to join together across national boundaries and work for the abolition of nuclear weapons. That initiative became known as the Mayors for Peace campaign, which also has status as a United Nations non-governmental organization. As of August 1st, the number of cities signed on to the Mayors for Peace campaign stood at 5,312. It is significant to note that in 2003, the city of Winnipeg joined the Mayors for Peace campaign, and it was one of 96 Canadian cities to have done so. Mayors for Peace has a broad mandate to foster the cooperation amongst citizens of the member cities based on the fact that lasting peace and security requires solving such problems as hunger and poverty, refugees and human rights, and environmental protection. Speaking for the Peace Alliance in Winnipeg, we would certainly encourage City Council to be more active in the Mayors for Peace campaign. There is also the necessity for all of us to be actively engaged. Since the 1990s, Canada has fought in 4 major wars. The first war against Iraq, the NATO wars in Yugoslavia, Afghanistan, and most recently in Libya. Today, Canada is one of the most vocal countries urging intervention in Iran and Syria. Canada's foreign policy has clearly shifted to being that of a protagonist in the international arena. None of this augurs well for peace and security. It is imperative that there be a strong peace and anti-war movement that can actually change the course Canada is on. Therefore, on this occasion, which is based on the efforts of ordinary people around the world, let us commit to the cause of peace by taking steps to advance a people's movement against war and for peace and security. That will mean different things to different people, but all these actions taken together can forge a new direction. What is important is to speak out and join in those efforts being put forward by various groups and even individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. I guess I've been involved in this Hiroshima Peace Day for many years, and at the end of every event, as an organizing committee, we debrief what we can do the next time and what impact we have. And I guess part of all of our commitment is to act accordingly and act on issues that are really significant to adding to global peace and many social justice issues and human rights issues that sometimes seem a little confusing, sometimes uncomfortable, but you know what? Are things that we know are going to make a difference. So the commitment to act accordingly to our own principles and values is really critical to world peace. One of the things that has happened in my life lately has been a tremendous gift to be part of programs with the Islamic Social Services. Shahina Siddiqui is here as the executive director, and I thank you, Shahina, for being here. Shahina represents an organization that has tremendous commitment to world peace, to social justice issues, to standing together as a country, as Canada, making a difference for all people of all diversities, faiths, cultures. One of the things, the programs that has come out of the Islamic Social Services is something that I was part of as well this past winter, and that was the Interfaith Youth Council. Young people of all sorts of faiths coming together on common grounds, on a common commitment to make a difference in the world. And unfortunately today, one of the people who was going to speak today about that was unfortunately not able to be here today. But Nadia, who always is so active and always so on top of every program in the Islamic Social Services, is here to maybe just give us a glimpse of what's been happening in that arena.
In February of this year, the Islamic Social Services Association got funding to organize a conference, an interfaith youth conference, and the design team were made up of youth from different faiths and backgrounds, and we had Tarumi and Steve Plennett from the Mennonite Central Committee help us with the organizing of that conference. It's the first of its kind that's been held here in Winnipeg, and it was great. We had a really wonderful turnout, people, kids, youth from all different faiths and no faiths coming to our conference, and we had speakers who themselves were youth talking about our similarities and also celebrating our differences, because we shouldn't shy away from the differences, but we should get to know one another, learn about those differences so we can celebrate them and respect them. What happened out of that conference, we didn't want it just to be a one-day thing and then that's it and we all go home and feel good about ourselves. We wanted to start a council made up of youth who attended that conference, and so we have this Manitoba Interfaith Youth Council. It's a very young council, both literally and figuratively. We've only had a couple of meetings, but we are a group of youth who are committed to coming together and really engaging in dialogue. And more than that, when we sat and discussed, what it was really resonant with the youth is that they want to do something. There's this need for action and there's this drive. And they made me feel old because they have so much determination to go and do something and go out and do something. So I would like to bring greetings on behalf of the Manitoba Interfaith Youth Council. When I was reading this speech by the mayor, it dawned on me this has happened 67 years ago, and there is this real need to pass on this knowledge for future generations to learn from. And I think that's something that really the Interfaith Youth Council can do, is really learn from the histories of our elders and to learn their wisdom so that we can teach the younger generation. So it's a great honor that we have people like Tarumi who mentor our council and to really learn and share from their wisdom and history. So thank you for inviting us, and on behalf of the Manitoba Interfaith Youth Council, we come here to pay our respects and to honor the memories of those who suffered from the atomic bomb. Thank you.
Next, I think what we're going to do is we're going to ask Stacy Matsumoto, who's a member of the board of the Manitoba Japanese Canadian Citizens Association, to tell us the story of Sadako and the 1,000 Paper Cranes.
This story was written by Eleanor Kerr, is about a young girl, Sadako, who becomes ill with leukemia in the aftermath of the dropping of the atomic bomb. She believes that if she makes 1,000 paper cranes, that she will be granted her wish to become well. According to ancient legend, the crane has 1,000 lives. Unfortunately, she dies before she completes the task of making 1,000 cranes, an activity her fellow schoolmates complete in her memory. Each year in Hiroshima, school children from all around the world adorn the statue of Sadako at the Peace Memorial Park.
I just wanted to let you know something about the lantern ceremony before we begin, but before we do that, I also request that the first launch of the lantern be done by a child. I think sometimes when we think about new beginnings and we think of a first step to something different, we think of children. And so we usually ask that a child launch the first lantern. Before I go into the lantern ceremony as well, I would like to thank all of our speakers who came today, and also a couple of people who helped make the event a special one as well. One was Brian Cox, who helped do a lot of origami things, as well as Shane Nestek, and I can't see Shane right now, but Shane is going to provide some music for us while the launch of the lanterns is taking place. The lantern ceremony is a ceremony that comes out of the Buddhist faith, and one of the things that happens as one of the rituals of the Buddhist faith is that once a year your loved ones who have passed away come back to celebrate their lives with you. And that festival is called the Obon Festival. It's usually in July. And it's a celebratory event because you are welcoming back your loved ones and you're celebrating with them the kind of love and the kind of joy you had with them. At the end of the festival, the lanterns are filled with various foods and light and all sorts of things to guide the spirits back in a safe way to the spirit world. And so as we launch our lanterns on this body of water, we think about some of the things that are important to us, not only the end of nuclear weapons, the end of war, global peace, but I think it sometimes resonates some of the loved ones that we have lost in our lives and that we remember with tremendous joy and happiness that we had them in our lives for that short period of time. And so with every launch of the lantern, I would just remind you to think just some really joyful, happy, loving thoughts, not only individually of people that have come through your life, but of our future, the future that we have for our children, of a better and a more peaceful world.